Débloquez la fluidité en anglais, réels conseils d'experts de Quora. Découvrez des conseils puissants pour maîtriser la fluidité en anglais à partir d'expériences réelles.
All right, so you ready to dive in? Today, we're tackling English fluency.
Sounds good to me. Let's do it.
But, we're not talking about those boring textbook methods. We're going straight to the source.
Straight to the source.
Yeah, real advice, real stories, all from people on Quora.
Yeah.
People who have actually walked the walk. They've mastered English.
Ah, I see. So like a real deep dive into their experiences.
Exactly. And whether you're, prepping for a job interview, just trying to improve, or, wanting to travel the world confidently, this is for you. We're uncovering those hidden secrets, the unexpected paths to fluency.
I think it's amazing, actually, how many people are out there like actively trying to improve their English. It's really inspiring, this global desire to connect and communicate.
It truly is. And the variety of approaches is incredible. Like, everyone has their own unique journey.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But before we get into those individual stories, let's zoom out for a second. Like, what are the big picture strategies? What pops up again and again in these Quora responses?
Well, one thing that seems to be like really gaining traction is the shadowing technique.
Shadowing technique.
Yeah, mimicking how native speakers talk, often from movies or TV shows. Sounds a bit out there, but there's actually a solid neurological basis for it.
Neuroscience and language. Okay, now you've got my attention. Tell me more.
So imagine this. You're basically forcing your brain to process language at native speed, right? And that rewires those neural pathways, makes it more tuned to the nuances of pronunciation, rhythm, all of that.
So it's like a workout for your brain, training it to, think and speak more naturally.
Exactly. Building that muscle memory, but for language. And the best part is you can see improvements pretty quickly, especially if you target specific sounds or phrases you struggle with.
So if you're like about to have a big interview, shadowing could be a game changer.
Absolutely. It can really boost your confidence and fluency fast.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. Now, moving on from shadowing, another big theme is actively processing the language.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of people, I think, they kind of stumble. They get so caught up in input, like reading, and output, speaking, they forget about that middle part, the processing.
It's like reading a cookbook, right? Doesn't make you a chef.
Exactly. You need to process that information, experiment. Language is similar.
So it's not just passively absorbing information, it's like actively making it your own. Internalizing the grammar, the vocab.
Exactly. And this one Quora user, Samriti Aurora, she suggests using the IPO model, input, process, output, emphasizes that quality input from reliable sources and then really taking the time to process it.
Okay, IPO. I like it. But what does effectively processing English actually look like? I mean, we all know about reading, listening, but what about that middle stage? Any concrete strategies?
Well, repetition is key. An active recall. So don't just read something once and move on. Go back, highlight key phrases, maybe try to summarize it, in your own words. For listening, try transcribing bits, focus on specific sounds. The more you actively engage, the better you'll remember.
So it's about being an active participant in the learning process, not just a passive observer.
100%. Now, another thing that came up a lot, and I'm sure this resonates with a lot of people, is the fear of speaking. Like, you can write fluently, but then you open your mouth.
Oh, tell me about it. It's like stage fright, but for conversations.
Right. And this one user, Luis M. Gonzalez, he has this fantastic analogy. He compares learning to speak English to Tarzan,
Tarzan?
Yeah, like his communication isn't grammatically perfect, but it's effective.
Right. He focuses on the core message and gets his point across. So how do we channel our inner Tarzan? How do we conquer that fear?
Well, first, remember that fluency is about communicating, not being perfect grammatically. Don't be afraid to make those Tarzan mistakes, That's how we learn. But for those who are, hesitant to just jump in, there's another interesting suggestion, this one from Raghavan Sridharan.
Okay, let's hear it. What's Raghavan's secret weapon?
He recommends practicing with, get this, customer service representatives.
Whoa, that's thinking outside the box. I love it.
Right. It's low stakes, real life. You're not going to be judged. And let's be honest, we all have to call customer service at some point. Why not turn it into a mini lesson?
Genius. Turning those everyday interactions into opportunities. Okay, I'm adding that to my list.
Me too. Now let's talk about something many consider key to fluency. Thinking in English.
Yes. The Jedi mind trick. How do we actually train our brains to think in a different language?
It's definitely a shift, and it takes effort. One user, Anurag Brahmaturi, suggests visualizing your thoughts in English even when not speaking. Like, replace that internal voice.
So instead of translating back and forth, we're training ourselves to think directly in English. Sounds tough, but also, like, incredibly rewarding.
It is, and like anything, the more you practice, the easier it becomes.
Okay, I'm ready to flex those mental muscles. Any tips for making this thinking in English part of daily life?
Start small. Maybe label things around your house in English. Or, narrate your day in your head like you're explaining it to someone.
So finding those little ways to immerse ourselves, even when we're not actively studying.
Exactly. You can even use your downtime. Think about what you enjoy doing. Watching movies, music, reading.
All of the above, especially reading. Big reader.
There you go. Do those things in English. Subtitles on, English music playlist, grab an English book.
Turning everyday activities into immersive experiences. Love it.
It's about making English a natural part of your life, not just something you study in isolation. And another great way to immerse yourself is finding a language partner.
Oh, yeah, that's important. Varshit Dusad, another Quora user, he really emphasized that having someone to talk to share struggles and successes with, makes it more fun, less intimidating.
Totally, like a workout buddy, but for language.
It's about building that community, that support system. Now, what about formal classes? Some swear by them, others prefer a more DIY approach.
That's interesting, and there were definitely a lot of different opinions on that. Assistant, the AI bot, it recommended considering English courses, especially those focused on conversation.
So maybe classes provide that structure, that foundation, while self-directed learning gives you more flexibility.
Exactly. It's about finding the right balance for you, your learning style, your goals. No right or wrong answer.
It's about knowing yourself as a learner and choosing the path that feels right. Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about maybe the most anxiety-inducing part of fluency, pronunciation.
Pronunciation, it's kind of like the big scary monster under the bed for a lot of language learners, isn't it? That fear of judgment.
Oh, totally. It's like everyone's suddenly an expert on your accent.
Yeah.
But like you said earlier, everyone has an accent, even native speakers, right?
Yeah.
That's part of what makes language so interesting.
Exactly. It's not about erasing your accent completely. It's more about clarity, making sure people understand you.
So finding that balance between keeping your unique voice, but also making sure you're understood.
Exactly. And one of the best ways to improve pronunciation, I think, is becoming aware of those specific sounds that trip you up. Recording yourself can be super helpful for that.
Ugh, I know, right? It's so cringy hearing your own voice, but also kind of eye-opening.
It is, because you can really hear how you sound and then compare it to like a native speaker. And there are so many resources online now, for practicing those tricky sounds.
Yeah, all those pronunciation guides, tutorials, even games. It's actually kind of fun. But pronunciation isn't just about individual sounds, right? There's also intonation, the music of language. That can totally change the meaning of a sentence.
Oh, huge point. Intonation is so important. It's like how we use our voice to express emotion, emphasis, all those subtle things.
And mastering intonation makes such a difference. You sound so much more natural, more fluent. But like, how do we actually get better at that?
It's all about training your ear. Immerse yourself, listen to audiobooks, podcasts, even just eavesdrop on conversations. Pay attention to how native speakers use their voices.
It's like learning a song by ear, right?
Yeah.
Those rises and falls, the pauses, the emphasis.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to practice out loud. Record yourself. Listen back. Are you using your voice effectively? Are you getting the meaning and emotion across?
Like having a personal voice coach in your pocket. But even with perfect pronunciation, perfect grammar, if you're not confident, it shows.
Confidence is so key. It's believing in yourself, believing in your ability to communicate.
It's like that saying, fake it till you make it.
Right.
Even if you're nervous, project that confidence, and eventually it becomes real.
And preparation helps with that too. If you know you're going to need to use English in a certain situation, think about potential topics, questions, even practice some responses.
Like having a script in your head, a cheat sheet for those tricky conversations. But even with preparation, we're all human. We all make mistakes. How do we get over that fear?
Remember, everyone makes mistakes. Native speakers too. It's normal. It's part of learning. Don't be afraid of those slip-ups. See them as like opportunities to learn.
Yeah, like those are the moments that actually teach you something.
Exactly. They're not failures. They're just part of the process.
So next time you mess up a pronunciation or a grammar rule, don't get discouraged. Those are your stepping stones to fluency.
Right. Even native speakers, we mess up sometimes. It's part of what keeps language interesting, It's always changing.
It's true. Language is alive. It's always evolving.
So yeah, embrace those imperfections, celebrate the progress, and just keep enjoying the process of learning.
Love that. But let's shift gears a bit. Why are so many people so determined to become fluent in English anyway? What's driving this global desire?
That's a good question. I think it speaks to the power of communication connection. For a lot of people, fluency opens doors, education, jobs, travel.
It's like a passport to a whole world of possibilities,
Right.
connecting with people from different cultures, different backgrounds.
Totally. Breaking down those barriers, building bridges. It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It really is. It's like a reminder that language is more than just words and rules. It's about understanding each other, about creating a more inclusive world.
Couldn't have said it better myself. But before we get to those unconventional fluency boosting tips, maybe we should acknowledge that learning a language can be tough.
Yeah, it's definitely a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
There will be times when you feel frustrated, when it feels like you're not making progress.
For sure. And it's in those moments, I think, that you have to remind yourself why you started. Like, what are you working towards?
What's that vision of fluency that keeps you going? Is it acing a job interview? Traveling the world? Talking to your family in their native language?
Whatever it is, hold on to that. And don't be afraid to get support.
Yeah, find those language partners, online communities, those resources that keep you motivated.
We're not alone in this, There are so many people out there learning languages, facing those same challenges, celebrating those same victories.
It's like a global community of learners, united by that desire to connect, to communicate.
And that's beautiful, right? Okay, so enough with the serious stuff. Let's get to those unconventional hacks, those creative approaches you mentioned, because sometimes you got to think outside the box.
Absolutely. It's about finding those unexpected ways to learn that make the whole process more fun, more engaging. And that's what keeps us coming back for more. Right. Okay, so spill the beans. What are these unconventional hacks we can use to boost our fluency?
Well, we already talked about one I really like, that practicing with customer service reps.
Oh, yeah, Raghavan's brilliant idea, turning those, sometimes annoying calls into actual conversation practice.
It's so smart, right? It just shows how many chances we have to use English every day, even in unexpected places.
But those hidden language lessons are everywhere if we just look for them.
Exactly. And another thing that popped up a lot in those Quora answers, which I thought was really cool, was music.
Music? Oh, I'm all ears for that. I've always thought music is such a great way to learn.
For sure. Think about it. Music has this way of, really getting into your brain, It makes it easier to remember things, like words and phrases.
Yeah, it's like those catchy jingles you can't get out of your head, but instead of, advertising slogans, it's vocabulary and grammar.
Exactly. And when you sing along to English songs, you're naturally practicing your pronunciation and intonation without even thinking about it.
It's like sneaking in a language lesson while jamming out to your favorite tunes. So fun.
Right. And speaking of fun, another suggestion was using online games.
Games. Okay, now you're talking. But how does that even work for language learning?
Well, a lot of online games these days have players from all over the world, and they often communicate in English.
So it's like real-life communication, but virtual.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, that competitive aspect of gaming can really motivate you,
It's like leveling up your English skills while you're playing. I love it.
It's all about finding those things that make learning enjoyable, Because if it's not fun, you're less likely to keep going.
Totally agree. And one of the biggest things that kills motivation, I think, is that fear of making mistakes.
Oh, yeah, that's the one thing every language learner struggles with. But it's so important to remember that mistakes are just part of the process.
It's like you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet.
Right.
I got to make those mistakes to reach fluency.
Exactly. Those mistakes aren't failures, they're opportunities.
Yeah, those are the moments you actually learn something new.
So next time you stumble over a word or mess up the grammar, don't beat yourself up about it. See it as a step forward.
Right. And remember, even native speakers make mistakes. It's part of what makes language so alive and, constantly changing.
That's so true. Language is always evolving. It's never static.
Exactly. So yeah, embrace the messiness of it all, celebrate your progress, and just enjoy the ride.
Well said. So I think we've covered a lot today. We talked about some classic techniques like shadowing and that IPO model.
Yeah, and we explored some more unconventional approaches too, those little hacks that can make things more interesting. It's been fascinating to see how many different paths there are to fluency. It's really about finding what works best for you, what you're passionate about.
Exactly, and what fits into your life. So keep experimenting, keep practicing, and most importantly, keep having fun with it.
Awesome. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into English fluency. We hope you've picked up some useful tips and maybe even a little extra confidence to tackle those language learning challenges.
Until next time, happy language learning, everyone!